Good morning. Hope everyone's having a good Saturday. Do you worry that the next generation is going to be less intelligent than this generation and that it's already going downhill? Despite the fact that there actually is evidence that the IQ is shrinking, you may be worried that we're going in the wrong direction. Now, whether or not society as a whole is actually getting stupider, there is a legitimate worry that we have a lot of people that are a little bit too clueless. What can you do about it? Easy. I'm going to give you a few things to arm yourself and your family, and by taking these steps, we can actually make society a little bit better by making us as a society less foolish. All right. So you've probably heard the phrase defining your terms. You should define your terms. Now, this is good advice. But you may not have thought about how important it is or the implications of taking it seriously and not taking it seriously. So what I'm going to do is talk about basically what happens if you don't define your terms, okay, and what you can avoid by defining your terms well. I'm also going to cover some tests to see if you're actually understanding what you're talking about that you could put forth for your students or your children and yourself. And then also some very, very simple steps that you could take that literally could be expressed in a few sentences and that you can apply today. Okay, so the first set. All right, so defining one's terms can avoid four major problems. Okay, the first major problem, just misunderstanding. If you don't define your terms well, you could be misunderstanding what a person is talking about. Can you imagine what it would look like if people don't know what they're talking about? They're using the same words, but each person on the side of the discussion are actually thinking of different things. That's not even communication. So one person is thinking about one thing using one word, and the other person is using the same word, but they're thinking of something completely different. Now, that's a recipe for not communicating at all. So you can't have a rational conversation if you're not actually talking about the same thing. Okay, so one major problem could be just misunderstanding. One for communication, but also for yourself. If you have the wrong conception of what is being considered, how could you possibly make any progress? All right, the second problem. Okay, error in the sense of if you have something confused, often what you are thinking about, you reason on top of. Okay, so for instance, if you have a misconception in premise one, and then you have an argument of, say, let's say three premises, if premise one is part of the foundation of that structure, okay, if you think of an argument kind of like a structure, if it's built on a misconception, then that whole structure could be completely weak or empty. Okay, so there's a misunderstanding. Okay, next would be errors based on those misunderstandings. Okay, now we start getting to the really serious ones. Zealotry without knowledge. Okay, I'm sure you've seen some people that are very, very excited and very enthusiastic. And then if you ask them, why do you believe what you believe? And it turns out that it's not even clear what they believe or why they believe it. Now, that should make you worry very much. Okay, if you are zealous without knowledge, okay, and this is, there's so many people that are willing to do things because they feel justified. Okay, now some people are well-meaning in the sense that they want to make the world better, and they want to fight for good things, and they want to oppose bad things, and those things are laudable. But what if what they think the world is, and what certain groups of people are, and what, let's say, a party believes, something like that, or a group of people, or a school of thought, what if these people have no clue what they actually think? Okay, basically that's just a prejudice. Okay, so zealotry without knowledge. Okay, it's kind of fanaticism. Okay, four. Now this is a special type of fanaticism that has a very specific issue. Irrational fanaticism that is immune to evidence and reason. Okay, so it's not only that you have zealotry without knowledge, you actually have it to such a degree that it doesn't matter what you present. It won't. You can't change their beliefs because it is immune to evidence. Now that's something very scary. We should all be very worried about that scenario. Okay, so first, misunderstanding. If you don't define your terms, you might not be understanding what you're talking about at all. Okay. Two, errors can be generated because there's a misconception or confusion. Okay. You could become a type of person that is zealous about something, but you don't exactly know what you're zealous about. Okay. And then the worst case would be that irrational fanaticism that is immune to any type of reason and evidence. That's very bad. Okay. Here are 3 tests for checking if your terms are clearly understood. Okay. Now, these are very short talks. I'm basically trying to come up with thumbnail tips to help us out. Okay, so we can obviously go into greater detail. We can write books about these things, in fact. So what I'm trying to do is give you some very quick tips that we can help ourselves. Okay, so 3 tests for checking if your terms are clearly understood. 1, you can provide a coherent definition without a dictionary or Google. I know this is shocking, right? But some people actually know things without pulling their phone out. Crazy. I know it's very crazy. And yes, I've actually ran into students where they've honestly, sincerely said, why do I need to know this when Google has it? It's shocking, but you can actually know things without looking at things on the phone. Crazy. Okay, so that would be a good first step. Okay. 2, you can explain important differences between related terms. Okay, so there's a lot of debates out there. There's economic theories, there's policies, there's issues related to racism, legislation, politics, all of these different things. Now, do you think you can get anywhere in those conversations if you don't even know what the terms mean? So, for instance, do you think you can get anywhere with a person, between the difference between socialism and capitalism, if you refuse to even say, well, what is capitalism and what is socialism? Or if you can get anywhere if you want to say, hey, well, what is racism? What is it caused by? If you can't answer those types of things, do you think you can get any headway? Probably not. Okay. 3, you can explain important aspects of the idea or term without hasty generalizations or attacks on people's character. Okay. Now, I think this is a really big one. Check online. I'm sure if you use YouTube or even if you just talk to people, ask questions that check your basic understanding. You'll often find people that they're basically driven by prejudice. Okay, now think about the word pre, something that comes before, judice. Okay, that goes to judgment, pre-judgment. To have a judgment before, before there's a full analysis. Okay, now if you find somebody that has these prejudices, they've already made up their mind. As soon as they get one piece of information, they go and run with it without actually thinking it through. Okay. Now, there's a bunch of hilarious videos out there that you can see, and when I say hilarious, I really mean scary, and it makes my heart hurt. It's like they go in and say, "What do you think of this speech?" And there's very often the questions are related to, did you think so? Let's take some Trump speech or something. Let's say that the Trump speech is supposed to be on Tuesday, and there'll be people that go out on like Monday night before it happens. It hasn't happened, okay? And they'll ask about what do they think of it, and there'll be a lot of people that talk about how racist or whatever, xenophobic or whatever it was before it happened. You got to think about that. The implications of people that are rushing to judgment, literally, because it's physically and in terms of time, it's physically and temporally impossible for them to have seen the speech. Not only do they know that it hasn't happened yet, but they are absolutely fanatically certain that it was, all of the above mentioned xenophobic, racist, whatever. Okay, now, does this prove or defend anything related to Trump? No, I'm not even touching those issues. It's just the fact is that people want to look smart. So they want to have the right party message. It's like, hey, I'm part of the in the know group. That's pretty bad. Okay. So 3 tests that you can check. You have to be able to give a coherent definition without actually looking at some reference material, right? You can explain important differences between those related terms. Okay, so for instance, you should be able to say what capitalism is and free markets in contradistinction to, let's say, centrally controlled things like socialism or something. Okay, and even better would be like, hey, what are the pros and cons of both sides? What are the arguments for and against both sides, etc. All right, so what's some simple prescription that we can do, like right now, today? If you're a parent, this is important for obviously yourself as a human being, but for your children to encourage the right types of thinking, okay, right type of habits of mind. Um, and you are responsible for encouraging the right types of habits and to discourage the wrong types of habits, okay? So here's a big one. Don't rush into sounding smart. Don't encourage that. Don't encourage trying to sound smart. Encourage, rather, trying to understand what is being said, to be an active listener, and to try to tease out the implications through careful and cautious reasoning. Okay? All right. So the next step would be just really think about the topic at hand. What that means is you don't want a canned response. Okay? You might have to say something like, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that. Or where can I find this resource to consider? Something like that. All right, so don't rush into sounding smart. The goal of communication, okay, and rational intercourse is not to win. It's about to get closer to the truth. It's not to sound smart. Okay. All right, so the biggest tip though, the biggest tip, and it's literally, it's amazing. It's just a few words. If you can do this, you could be a smarter, wiser person. Are you ready for it? Okay. If I had a drum roll, I would be having a drum roll right now. Okay. Say, I don't know. If somebody asks you a question about something, don't pretend to know something. Say, I don't know. Or, I haven't thought about that. No, I'm not sure about what this guy said because I haven't watched it. Or, I'm not sure about this policy. I'd have to do some research. Okay. I know it's crazy. I don't know. All right. So hopefully this was helpful. I do think this is very, very important. If we can all try to at least see what is being said by the other person you're talking to, but we need to have clear definitions. If somebody's using these very loaded terms, these are some things like racism, white supremacy is a big one. What is it? White nationalism, that's a big one. Socialism and capitalism, what do they really mean? What are the actual theories that stand under them? What are the historical results of different theories? All of these things are really, really live options. People are voting, and what you do with voting affects policy, which in turn basically gives marching orders to people. Okay, there are really, these are real circumstances that are going to affect a lot of people's lives. Okay, and we don't want to be basically these crazy people that refuse to say things like I don't know. If you can say you don't know, that is a good thing. Okay. One last thing, and then I will close. Think about two different dimensions. You can have an ignorant person, which means they don't know something, but in a way they can be wise. Okay. And you can know that they're wise is because they say things like, I don't know. It's very simple. Also, you can have somebody that's ignorant, okay, and instead of saying, I don't know, they just want to appear smart, okay? They don't say, I don't know, because they do know. They know everything, right? Because they're an intelligent person. They're at the college. They have a degree in whatever. Now, it is very true that if you have a degree in something, you should know certain things. That's true. You should know that. Okay. But as we know, we've ran into people that have certain degrees, and you wonder how they get out of bed in the morning and put their own pants on. All right. So ignorant, wise person, ignorant, fool. The next category would be an informed wise person, which They became wise and informed because they asked really good, probing questions. Okay, the one who has a wise habit of mind will, when they go through a degree, they will actually possess a lot of knowledge because they go through things like, I don't know this, but I'll find out. I haven't thought about this implication, but I will. I will devote the time and energy to it. But, and this is one of the motivations for this brief talk, is there are informed fools. Okay, the informed fool has a lot of stuff in their head. Okay, but it's kind of like the garage with too much stuff in it. There's some stuff that's good. There's also some stuff that's junk. Okay, now the informed, the person that has a lot of stuff in there, but is a fool, can't tell the difference between the good stuff and the bad stuff. In a previous talk, I mentioned about wisdom is about taking away knowledge, because and then growing in knowledge is just about adding. Okay, a wise person pares away the things that are not essential, and has a really good, strong idea of how things are more important and less important, stronger arguments, weaker arguments, etc. Okay, so hope this was helpful. After this talk, let's all go out and try to encourage honesty. If you don't know something, say you don't know. That is the wisest answer you could give. That is what we should encourage. Let's not encourage just like partisan, I want to sound smart, or I want to be part of the right, the woke crowd, I guess that's what they call it. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's better to say you don't know. It's better to think about things critically. Okay? And we can do this today. Okay? If you can't define your terms, look something up and think about it. And if somebody's asking about it, just say you don't know. But let's have a high bar for ourselves for what we think we understand, and know that if you understand something, you should be able to do things. You should be able to communicate what the idea is about. You should be able to explain what the term means. You should also be able to distinguish similar terms in the conversation that are part of the discussion. If you can't do that, then the burden is on you to do a little research. Okay? All right, so check out my website, commonphilosopher.com. Send me a message if there's anything that you want me to cover especially. If you think that I've made a mistake, great, let me know. I want to figure out where I make mistakes, because that means I could be more knowledgeable and I could be wiser. So if you have any requests or corrections, I would love to hear from you. But you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to this, and let's all try to define our own terms, and we can all become more intelligent and wise together and make the world a better place.